Alrighty, everybody. Let's get some games in today. Let's see what we can do. At least one game in today. Running these 10 plus 5s. Give me a little bit of wiggle room on the increment there. I've been playing D4 a lot, even though I noticed a lot of my opponents when I'm playing from the black side start with E4. So just a slightly different. Okay, we have a Slav. And I'm supposed to remember what I'm supposed to do on the Slav. I think we continue in standard format. If this bishop comes out, we have the infiltration. Okay, so we're now going into a kind of a modified semi-Slav / Queen's Gambit declined, because this bishop is not out yet. Let's continue with our standard knight plan. At some point, we'll keep in mind this early A4 push, because we know that that's one of the things we want to watch out for. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead with the A4 push now to stop this. I know I could capture back, and I'm giving my opponent a chance to defend this pawn, but I didn't want to grab, let my opponent push, have to retreat, and then that is technically defended, so I'm okay there. No, I have to watch out for, this is one of those things you have to watch out for here, because then it puts double pressure along this piece. So let's start with this. Because when this knight comes in, it puts double pressure. Exactly. See, right along that. Now, I'm going to lose this bishop, so I'm going to trade my dark square bishop for this knight. That's kind of the purpose of this knight move. So either there's a double attack here, or my opponent gets to trade off a knight for a bishop. And as much as I would love to avoid that, I cannot, in order to keep this doubly defended. If I could run my queen up here instead of the bishop, but it's just something that you just kind of have to deal with in these situations. I've seen it enough times now that I'm starting to remember it. I don't remember everything, obviously, but every now and then I remember something. So I'm ready to castle. Now this guy is a little bit tricky, so we're gonna have to figure out a way to dislodge this particular bishop. So part of my thought process was to see if I could rotate my queen up to here, up to b3, because then I'm attacking this bishop, and if this bishop ever moves, then I've got access to that pawn. But it looks like my opponent is preparing to push their b pawn, so this would be unnecessary to try to rotate around, because my opponent's going to push the b pawn, and thus the b pawn is defended. Oops, get rid of that. So that being said, then the queen can move wherever else I want it to. And let's go ahead and put it along this diagonal. That gives us an opportunity for something like this. Yeah. So I'm going to, I was debating on this one. This is what I was debating on. No, I can't do that. I don't have a dark square bishop. That knight is not defended. Okay, so I can't do that yet. All right. Now, my rooks are connected, so I'm safe here if this guy gets free. His are not, though. So if he captures, that's a free rook for me, I think. I think he's now recognizing that he can't capture. His pawn is pinned. Yep. He's going to start trying to find ways to unpin. He still can't capture. Now he can capture. But first things first, I'm going to threaten checkmate. So I still am offering up a full bishop. And now my opponent has defended against that. So now I have to retreat with my bishop. And the question is, where do I want the bishop to go? I've got a couple options. Number one would be to bring it right down here. Number two would be to go for this trade, but I kind of don't want to open up my opponent's queen yet. Let me just do some quick math. So if let's say I leave it here, captures, captures, captures. So capture, capture, capture. Then it's my turn. Do I get anything out of that? I could get a pawn back. So that would be sacrificing. Now, getting the knight up here doesn't do anything. All right, let's just go ahead and retreat. Now I do have this as an option. Because that's attacking both of these bishops. Now he's finally attacking. Aha! Let me see if I can do this. Capture here. Capture back. Capture here. What happens if he just captures? Then I capture with check. Can I continue the attack from there? I don't know. Ah, I've got a fork. Ooh, we've got a fork. Boom. So we're going to let this attack stall out so we can get this fork in real quick. Okay, that's good. That's good. I'm glad we saw that. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything here real quick. Yeah, I'm okay there. All right. So we go up a little bit more material. Ah, I wish I had a dark square bishop now, don't you? All right, this bishop now is a pain in my butt. All right, let's see what can we do here. I think we'll continue in this fashion. Ah, that is defended. Could almost force a queen trade. Actually, it would force a queen trade, to be honest with you, by capturing with the queen. I didn't see that pawn push. That's good. Okay. All right. So now it's time to pick up the pace a little and see what we can do. If I push this pawn, I'm going to give my opponent an outside pawn. There's an open lane down here that I would really like to do something with. What if we rotate around? Is that too obvious? Ah, other rook over. Duh, other rook over, because then capture. This'll open out, because then that's... He's looking for the rook. Okay, all right, so we have to retreat the rook. Are we threatening checkmate? Yes, we are. GG. All right, so we had to double check. My opponent has this bishop pair that's online that could get really ugly really fast if you're not careful, but we calculated it out and we got it. We even if we had to sacrifice this exchange, even if we had grabbed back, right? Let's say that I miscalculated somewhere and this wasn't checkmate. I could have basically sacked the exchange to give myself a little bit of, if I needed to. I didn't need to, thank goodness, but if I needed to, I could have sacked the exchange. I'm up the exchange once, so sacking it back means I'm still up 2 pawns. So he would eliminate my rook to get that. I would eliminate his bishop to get that, and then we basically go into, we're up 2 different pawns. I'm up 2 whole pawns. So then I can figure out how to do the, then I could probably get this guy involved here and have 3 attackers in this pawn, probably break through somehow. Yeah, something like that maybe. Not sure. I'm not sure yet. Not sure yet. All right, let's take a look at the analysis. That was a fun game. It was a fun game. We'll get this one put up online as soon as possible. But so this was a Slav, is what it started out as. Yeah, it looks like the knight moves are definitely the most common by far. I went for the knight f3, a modern line. And then, yeah, okay, so this stayed as a Slav game with this particular e6 move. I thought that the bishop was supposed to come out. I thought in the Slav games we wanted to see this bishop get out and take advantage of this long diagonal. But I guess the idea is maybe later. Yeah, and then I guess capturing. Yeah, I guess we do transpose into a semi-Slav. And then a4. Yep, we know a4 is coming. Because, yeah, b5 is a threat. Because now a4, you can just push past. And that's where this knight becomes kind of ugly. Can't go there, can't go there. I guess this would be okay, but it's undefended. Yeah, e4 is not horrible at this point in time. And then you can either go to the rim, where it becomes dim, right? Knights on the rim are dim, or grim, or knights on the edge, or dead, or whatever you want to call it. Or it could tuck over here. So really, these are the only 2 good squares you could put it to. And I'm not opposed to going here and rotating it around. But it does mean that black gets this, right, that's defended. So black gets this nice little center, or not center, but this advanced queenside push. And I'm having to remaneuver my same piece all over the board. And notice, if I do rotate here, I've cut myself off from capturing that pawn. So the gambited pawn, I lose, and I don't get it back for a while. But we know that. We know that the a4 pawn is coming, and we do it later. And the engine says that, here, let me get rid of this. The engine says, I bet, yeah, capturing is still okay at this point in time. I decided to hold off a little bit longer, yeah, and just go for the a4 now to make sure that I don't lose anything. And yeah, this is a very good move by my opponent. It opens up, unfortunately, this particular square. And then we saw what happens with this double pressure. We knew that was a possibility. Engine says it's still okay to go ahead and grab my pawn back. All right. Oh, duh. Right. This is not defended. Because normally by this point in time, there's a bishop here. Ha! That's what happens when you overthink things, right? This is an undefended piece. Normally there is or the pawn that he captured, right? This exchange. Normally that pawn is sitting there, or eventually, or there could have been a bishop here. So this capture, way back at the beginning, actually hurt my opponent because this could have been a free knight for me. If you guys saw that, let me know. I missed it completely. I was too concerned about this knight and this bishop are a double pressure, and I had it defended. Like I had a fantastic defense of it, I felt, right? We totally prepared that. Could have easily grabbed a free knight. Yeah, either you take. Look at that, now I got a double attacker here. And this guy can sit over here in the middle. That would have been fun. All right, so I missed that. What else did I miss? Grab my pawn, my opponent, yeah. Like I said, I knew normally there is a pawn sitting here when this happens. So this pawn defends, or this bishop is outside the pawn chain. And so you can't normally capture. But yeah, there's, by defending, overly defending my knight, which is a good thing, right? 2 defenders, 2 attackers. By overly defending my knight, I am giving up this dark square bishop. That's okay. I was able to develop my queen a little bit. Got castled, yeah, and the rest of the game kind of went as we expected it to, I think. We totally predicted that, right? This was a setup move here. The only reason to push this pawn is so that you've got a nice pawn base, right? So that this guy can get pushed forward. Notice, if we look at squares again, right? So if we stop talking about pieces so much, we look at squares. Let's talk about squares. This particular square right now, I have attacked this square twice. So I have control, actually 3 times if you think about it, although this piece is pinned currently, so it's not really involved in that defense. But I have 2 attackers on this particular square. My opponent does not. So by pushing this pawn, he now gets 2 attackers on that square. The value of my attackers is more than the value of the defenders. So if I were to capture, I'm giving up a pawn and a bishop for a pawn and a pawn. It's not valuable. That's not a good trade. So if we look at this particular square, now we are fighting over control of this square. I currently have control. My opponent pushes a pawn. Now we have an equal amount of control, but I'm controlling it with a higher value piece. My opponent is controlling it with base pieces. So in reality, my opponent has created an imbalance on that square. He is defending it with these pawns. I am attacking it with a bishop. I'm not going to stick my bishop on there. So there's an imbalance on this square, and my opponent is then going to park this pawn here. And notice this pawn comes with an attack. So this is a clear telltale sign that my opponent is going to take this square. And then, yes, we calculated this correctly. My first instinct was just simply retreat the bishop and then look for something along that diagonal. But then we realized that my opponent is not developed, right? Rooks are not connected. They're not bros for life yet, man. So until these rooks get connected, my opponent has some issues, or at least defended. He's got to defend this rook somehow. This particular, he could have simply just made this bishop move, right? Take advantage of this long diagonal, because then this would be a threat, because then I can't capture because he can capture. Well, I guess it's just a trade, but I have now lost that bishop in the process. But yeah, I felt really strong about this since this is not defended. He can't capture. I'm safe. If he were to be able to grab, I'm safe. And so I picked up one pawn there, which is I'm very happy about. Yeah, I'm still safe. Now I'm no longer safe. This is a threat. So now we have to get this moved. But like I said, we went with the threat. Let's look what the engine says. See if we can get the engine to fire up. Because in my mind, like that went exactly according to plan. I felt really strongly about that. We saw some threats. We evaluated the position as we went. We were correct in our evaluation. Of course, I can't get the engine to load. All right, so moving on. Yeah, and notice if my opponent had pushed either one of these pawns to try to attack this knight, that's too slow. Trying to dislodge this knight right now is too slow. Something like this, doesn't matter. I can still get in for checkmate. Something like this to attack, doesn't matter. I can still get in for checkmate. So you have to stop this queen moving through. And one way that my opponent could do it, well, there's a couple ways. Number one, they could stick a knight here and defend that square. Or they could push a pawn, and they chose to push the pawn, which works out great. Notice I do not have a fork because that square is defended. So at this point in time, I am under attack now. This is a threat, so I have to retreat. My thought of going here instead of here, like I thought about this. In fact, I even debated bringing the bishop all the way down to here and then parking it up along this diagonal. But since my opponent already has that diagonal controlled, that would simply exchange bishops and open up my king. And I've already opened up my king a little, and so I didn't want to do that. So I debated on here, but I quickly dismissed it because this is not a possibility. Coming back like this is fine, but the only reason to come back like this, I guess, would be to eventually stick my queen here. I guess. And then if my opponent moves this pawn, which he did, then I could capture with check, and then I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. So this is a lot of moves to get my bishop right to there, whereas I could either just go one move or I can go one move. And so either way, I'm looking at this. Since I already have a little bit of threat along these, my next thought process was what happens if I capture, convince my opponent to try to capture back? Can I somehow open up some discoveries? And no, I don't really have anything, but I know I'm talking a lot about, I'm stalling to see if the engine will load, but I guess it's not wanting to load. Oh well, all right. Moving right along. Now my opponent, unfortunately, by making this move, yes, he is attacking my piece, but he is weakening a square. So we look at squares. We try to start focusing on squares. We have weakened this square. We have now also weakened this. So this is what I was looking at. What happens if I capture here? If my opponent were to capture that way, I've got this with check. The problem is, I think either of these, I'm not really threatening checkmate. And even if I put my, yeah, I don't know. There's a way to checkmate with this pattern somehow. Like move the bishop out of the way. I don't know. I don't think I see it offhand, and I can't get the engine to help me out here. All right. Quickly. But anyway, so my opponent has weakened this square, and thankfully we spotted the fact that we have a fork. So we were up a pawn. Now we are up an exchange. So we're up 3 points of material at this point in time. At some point we go up a 4th point of material. I forget where. Yeah, unfortunately my opponent didn't spot the trap. I have trapped my rook. 100% this rook is trapped. Oops. It can't go this way because that square is covered multiple times. It can't go this way because that square is covered multiple times. And God forbid, let's say I did try to, let's say my opponent made a nothing move real quick. I capture. My opponent captures with the queen. I capture back with the queen with check. Oh no, I guess I do have it covered. I was thinking that this was coming. Well, I would have to move the knight. Yeah, this is tricky because if I move the knight, this is, so now if we count the material on the board, 2 pieces and a rook, 1 piece and 1 rook. So I'm down a piece after that. So don't want to see that happen. So I have trapped my rook, but this threat of checkmate is legitimate. My opponent would have to figure out a way to defend against checkmate. Maybe that? Because then I can't go there because then we can... And then again, I'm down material. At least in this line, I can retreat my 1 rook to 3 pieces. 2 rooks and a piece. So we each have a knight, we each have a rook. He's got a bishop pair for a rook. This would be an interesting game. I think the experts would argue back and forth that typically the bishop pair is stronger than a single rook, right? If we look at the points system, the point system says the bishop pair is 6 points, a rook is only 5. Plus the bishop pair in an end game that is now where the board is opening up like it is, that does become very powerful. And a rook, while it is strong, it still has a little bit of work to do to get out from some of these pawns. So it's possible that black is in a much better position here. And then this, yeah, that's just giving up a queen. Yeah, I'm still not, yeah, I guess I could make a trade here and then retreat. So yeah, we don't want to do that. So yeah, either way we look at it, I have trapped my, I've trapped my rook, and my opponent does have a move that would defend checkmate. I'm trying to think if they have more moves that could defend checkmate. Not this. They can move the king, right? Because that's defended, and now this would allow for this. Then yeah, my rook is still trapped. Yeah, because even then, well, I could do that. There we go. That could work because if he captures, I capture. If he captures here, I capture here. So it's either an even trade, or I have either stalled to give myself time to retreat, or we exchange rooks, and I'm happy with that. Okay. So yeah, all right, that was a good one. That was interesting. We were able to make some good predictions. We were able to walk through, and we were able to get the win. That was a fun game. I hope I didn't ramble too much here at the end, guys, and you could probably skip the whole ending of the game. Realistically, this game, I did have enough time. I felt like to kind of talk through. I missed something, right? We missed this. Luckily, we didn't really miss anything else. We took a risk by trapping our rook, but it turned out it paid off. And then, yeah, we started, at this point in time, we had a really good handle on how the game was going to develop. And then right here, things got a little risky, right? This move here is pretty risky, using a rook to attack the bishop. I wish the engine would tell me what's a better move here at this point in time. I was really hoping to get this fork in, but this bishop is doing a fantastic job along that diagonal, and I don't have a way to dislodge it without Oh, that's spending a lot of time. I'd have to go here and then here. And then I'd move my queen. Then my queen would be up here. And now I'm no longer attacking this bishop. So, right, then no, that would work. So I could come here, and then trade with the knight. Duh, we trade with the knight, and that does come with a fork. Okay, that could have worked. It'd still just be a trade because my opponent could just slide, the queen here, and then it would just be a trade. But I'd get to get rid of that bishop, which would be nice. I don't know. Either way, this was a risky move by me to get my rook involved in the game on attacking this bishop. Obviously, my opponent had a defense that somehow I missed. That's okay. Rotating the bishop around was really strong. And then this, because we have this open line, because my opponent's king is exposed, that's where things went bad. So, all right, guys, that was a fun game. The first half was nice and fast, and then the second half was a lot of me rambling. All right, I will talk to you later. Y'all have a great day.